Hi, World Doll Day celebration. Happy holidays. I couldn't make it to California this year to film, so I'm still in Florida. So the good news about that is I get to hang out with my good friend David Buttry, and he's sharing his amazing collection, just like you did last year with Chrissy. Yeah. So we're going to talk about something a little different this year. So you guys know I'm a Barbie collector. David, you're a Barbie collector, but we both share a passion for another fashion doll that some of you may not have ever heard of. The doll's name is Lika. And Lika was, and still is, what, the most popular
doll in Japan.
Yeah,
since her inception.
She was introduced in 1967, so we're going to give you a little history about the best-selling fashion doll in the Japan market. So, Barbie was manufactured in Japan.
Correct, yeah.
And, but they didn't have that market sort of cornered there. They didn't really understand what little Japanese girls and boys wanted as far as a fashion doll.
Right.
So they did market Barbie there, but it
wasn't as successful as they had hoped.
Yeah, and so I think they kept trying incarnations. There are a lot of fun things to us. Collectors love Japanese exclusives, and they came out in the mid-60s, which with Francie over there, and I think she kind of enjoyed
a little heyday, because she was sweeter looking than Barbie at that time. She was before Twist and Turn.
Slightly more demure, and probably more reflective of what Japanese
culture
was thinking of. This is a wonderful Francie in a Japanese exclusive dress. So, you know, we're going to kind of circle back around. In 1955, there was a company called Sato Vinyl Industries, and they made inflatable things. So they made all kinds of inflatable stuff, pull rings. There's like inflatable snowmen and Santa Claus is way
reindeer and stuff. Yeah.
They did all of that kind of stuff like that. So they did a lot of vinyl, but they wanted to break into sort of the dress-up doll market. So Yasuda Sato, who had this company, was approached and told, we want you to come up with an idea for a dress-up doll. So there were a lot of dolls on the market at that time, but they were like
bigger sized dolls, as we're here.
Toddler dolls. And so that's what they kind of wanted him to come up with, more or less mimicking what everyone else was doing, but he decided to kind of go directly to little girls and find out what they wanted. Now, at the time, there was a thing called manga that was huge. Mm-hmm. It was like books that had like comic strips designed directly for girls.
Yeah, and I think the time period they call is the Showa era.
The Showa period.
Yeah, so it's like these stylized, beautifully large-eyed, beautiful girls.
They had a whole different aesthetic than what we were looking at here, and the industry. They did all of these like really kind of fabulous, big-eyed illustrations, and so the little girls more or less showed that this is what they loved. So he went to a famous manga artist named Miyako Maki, and she illustrated a doll for them, and the illustrations were used in the original booklet for Lika Chan. And so this was the first Lika that was produced. Now, Lika is, I think, 21 centimeters tall.
She would be that, because
Barbie
inches. Is about 27. So,
yeah. And she's very slender. She looks like those illustrations from the manga. She's got big eyes. I'm going to take her off her stand. But she has auburn hair, and the little girls loved her. It was kind of like one of those illustrations kind of come to life.
Yeah.
Now, I just love them. So
yeah, what's amazing about them is that she has auburn hair for years, which is like something we would never think that in the Japanese market.
You would think that they had black hair because predominantly Japanese people have black hair.
Yes.
But I'm going to show you a couple things. I don't know if you know what. Now here in the U.S. or the Barbie world, we talk about number one Barbie and number two Barbie, and we kind of number them all. They refer to things slightly different in Japan. This is called first generation Lika. So this is the first one. So they have this sort of like vinyl body that has a wire armature on the inside that you can kind of pose her. So she's posable, and she's gonna be a little indecent. Forgive me, David, but we're gonna lift up her. She doesn't have a twist and turn waist, and she has a little belly button. And the first generation is the only one that has that.
Yeah, there's like a later first generation that does have a split waist, I believe.
So it's like the twist and turn.
But this is like the original version.
So this is the original version, 67. And then the one thing that we know is, if you'll come and zoom in close and look at her face, you know, the little highlight in her eye, she only has one star in her eye, one little dot of light in her eye. They call that her charm point, which I think is cute. But she's this wonderful little impish little doll, and they did.
I was gonna say that's also how you denote a first generation Lika, is because she has just one highlight dot.
Oh,
in
really?
Her eye. Yeah.
So, but I think she's very cute. She was very successful.
Yeah. She was.
We'll share at some point some of the commercials. There's actually commercials. They advertise much like Barbie did here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Directly to the kids.
And what's amazing is that it'll be familiar to you as those of us who grew up in the mid 20th century and beyond, because they use a lot of stop motion animation with the dolls because they could be articulated because you can bend their legs and knees. So it's very reminiscent of like the Rankin Bass Christmas specials that we remember growing up that were all produced in Japan.
Exactly.
Too.
Lika Chan のお家で遊ばない？小さな可愛い着せ替え人形リカちゃん。さあ、ドレスに合わせていろいろなヘアスタイルを考えてください。リカちゃんは手足も自由に曲がります。抱っこちゃんマークの可愛いリカちゃん。
And she was very successful because they followed sort of the aesthetic that little girls were wanting in Japan.
Right.
Unlike what Mattel was trying to do. So they were very successful. And so that is the first generation Lika. So she was so successful, she kind of continued on. And so over the course of some time, she acquired some family and friends. So on this side, we have Izumi and Wataru, which is her
boyfriend. Her friend who is a boy.
Her friend that is a boy. And then her older sister, which was introduced, named Ri.
Right.
And Ri kind of has a weird story of she was a stewardess.
Yeah, she's like an airline stewardess.
So she's, you know, this is a little replica outfit on this Ri. She's a stewardess, and her mother runs into her on a flight and suddenly remembers that she had a daughter.
Yeah, as they do.
Yeah, you know, that happens all the time. The one thing that's kind of interesting is Ri has a beauty mark on the side of her face. So
she's very glamorous.
She's very glamorous.
Yeah, and she has like a little wardrobe that's all like stewardess costumes.
So they sort of increased her family with friends. They actually made a mother for her, Lika Mama.
Lika Mama is very popular with collectors.
And
she has a groovy wardrobe, too.
Oh, yeah. So this is an accessory set for Lika Mama. This is her shoes and stockings, and Zori for, you know, when she wears kimono. And what was her mother a designer, or she had a boutique?
That I don't remember specifically, but she's very stylish.
She's very stylish. She has
her own wardrobe.
And here's like a little place that's like a department store, and you can see the different outfits that were available. The packaging is very reminiscent of like 1960s Barbie to me.
Yeah.
I think it's really...
And it's also like a lot of uses of hot pink before kind of Barbie really latched onto using a lot of hot pink. That's sort of her signature color, and you'll see it mixed with a lot of other bright colors.
The other thing that I've discovered with both Lika and the other dolls, and the dolls that were made in Japan at the same time, there's a lot of crossover in fabrics. You see some of the same fabrics with Lika that you see with like Dawn and...
Yeah, it's like the one thing that there's only a few manufacturers in Asia at the time. I'm sure it would have been the same in Japan, as they're sourcing from the same places. A lot of the same factories are manufacturing several different lines across. So you'll find fabrics that were made for dolls in Japan that end up on our dolls, or vice versa. Maybe at a later date, but they do appear.
The fabrics appear. So after she had been out for a while, they, with every doll company, they start updating. And so these are what we call second generation.
Yeah, she has the little signature flip hairstyle.
And the body has changed a little bit. She has slightly more posable. She's a little bit more posable. She has this more solid leg.
She's not quite as much of a baby splay that like the first generation Likas do, which is like when you sit them down, their legs go out.
Right.
Her leg can almost sit straight out
forward.
Almost. Yeah, a little bit better.
And she has 2 dots of white in her eye.
Yeah, she's got 2 highlight dots, so that's how you know she's second generation. It's an easy way to remember that she's a second generation.
And the thing, the one detail of these dolls when they came out that I find very interesting is they came with what I call Frankenstein shoes. They're these weird shoes, and they're kind of weird and clunky because they have magnets in the bottom. So this is a metal bucket, so she stands on her own because of those magnets.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fabulous. And if you grew up as a child in the 70s, if I pull her out, that this is Tuesday Taylor.
Right.
And she came out after Lika in the 70s, and she has the magnetic shoes with the little metal disc stand, which Lika and Lisa have later. And so you think there is some collaboration between Ideal and Takara,
right.
So you have to kind of figure that they probably took a little bit of that inspiration from the Japan market.
It's pretty genius. It's pretty genius. And so in that same year, she got some new friends. And so this is Pato-chan and Pat-chan, Patricia. We all call her a few different things. And
you can see
and sorry, our dogs are here visiting too. So the little barking.
If you hear it.
If you hear it.
Yeah.
So she was like a whole different kind of doll. This one she's wearing the costume for Poor Cinderella.
Yes.
So I'm gonna have you kind of help me. This is what happens with her is we take the skirt off, and I'll let you flip that.
Okay.
And we'll take off the kerchief. Her waist actually extends, so now she's a grown-up. And she has the Frankenstein shoes. So now we put the skirt on. And they came with these little masks, so it was kind of like, sort of that transitional sort of play that, I'll hold her while you do that. It was a transitional play, so it was like one doll, but with, new costumes and stuff, she could evolve, and so, she had all of these little accessories and stuff, so she has her magnetic shoes, and so now she's like a fairy tale princess with this, sort of a transitional sort of wardrobe. So that was her friend Pato-chan. But that same era this is her friend Harumi, which is one of my favorite dolls.
She's very sweet. I love her little face sculpt.
Yeah. So in 1971, here in the U.S., we got Malibu Barbie.
Yes.
And I love me some Malibu Barbie. Suntan and golden blonde hair. And one was either inspired by the other, but...
I would say that probably the Malibu Barbie came out first. And
right.
that inspired a lot of different doll lines across the board. But Lika was also not... she didn't avoid the trend herself.
So these are not real Peachy Likas. These are replica Peachy Likas. But it's suntan Lika with long, glowing blonde hair. Same size, but they're very rare.
Yes, they are.
They're extremely rare.
Yeah, they're some of the most, and if you were collecting them, they're probably one of the most expensive Likas that you could ever want to attempt to purchase.
Well, I've been collecting Lika for probably 20 years and discovering things, and that when I saw that doll, I wanted that doll.
Yeah.
And so for years I bid and bid and bid on them and never been able to get one. I finally got one, and her hair was cut, and I'm kind of like, but I finally got one. Yeah, but they've done replicas, and we'll come to that. But those are great. And around the same time as like the first generation, they did Lady Lika.
Lady Lika,
who's a more teenager, grown up kind of gal.
She really is kind of almost like the Francie of the Lika line, and which is really interesting is that she's a completely different character.
So she's not Lika, she's Lady Lika.
So she's Lady Lika. Very confusing to collectors, but she's not the same Lika character as the little girl.
But they did these great mod clothes.
Ensembles, early 70s, like a lot of Peter Max inspired clothing and really wild stuff, because she's a little bit older, so she could have a wilder wardrobe.
And it, the use of everything that was in fashion, right? The vinyl. This has got like a vinyl mini skirt,
and velvet and suede,
and like this is almost sort of like a fishnetty kind of fabric. So it's just super cute. Yeah. Super cute.
They're wonderful, and she came in several different hairstyles. Not hairstyles, but several different hair colors. So you can collect them all.
So those are great. And so around that time there was a lot going on, so
and second generation Lika lasts almost for 10 years.
Yeah, it's a long period of time.
She's there for all throughout the 70s, and then at the beginning of the 80s you have two things happen. You have Lisa.
Yes, Lisa. But before we get to Lisa, I want to point out I'm going to show, this is a Mattel doll.
Yes.
This is Lika Chan, or as we refer to her, Lika Chan Francie. Essentially the Francie body, made for the Japanese market, and it had the face, it's got like the bigger eyes. And this is once again Mattel's attempt in the 70s.
Yes, mid-70s.
To get with the program.
Right.
What the little Japanese
children want. What they find
right.
aesthetically pleasing.
So they did that, some modicum of success, but I think at that point Lisa had ate their lunch. So
Lika had. It was a done deal.
Lika was entrenched in this world. So around in the early 80s we get
third generation
Lika.
So around 83 you get third generation Lika.
She's 1 centimeter bigger. Is this when she gets bigger?
Something like that. She's not quite bigger, but she's her face is like a little softened, and then she's got the longer straight
hair. It's straight hair, still auburn,
right.
And so this is 4th gen,
right? Third gen.
Excuse me.
And then it's okay. So many generations. And then at the beginning of the 80s, for the American market, they make a doll called Lisa.
Right.
So, and then this is her. And really the only difference between her and second generation Lika is the fact that her little ears are kind of pinned back. Lika in general has little ears that stick out, and Lisa's are kind of more pinned to her head.
Yeah, so the ears are different, but essentially it's like a second generation doll. And I actually remember this. We had like a toy store when I was little. I remember seeing this and being completely fascinated by it. What is this?
Yeah.
But they marketed this in the U.S.
Yeah, they have offices in New York. Takara had New York offices at the time. There's the booklet is labeled New York for Takara.
Yasuda Sato that started this company, it became Takara Limited, and Takara in Japanese means treasure. I don't know if you know that.
I did not know that.
But Lika was very successful, but they did all kinds of toys and inflatables, so it wouldn't surprise me to
see that they tried to make it
everything.
Yeah.
So that is Lisa that was available here in the U.S., which you
for a short period of time, which you can still find.
Yeah, I was gonna say a brief period of time, but if you're loving these dolls, this is the chance you might actually turn up at your doll show or somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So about this time, I think Mattel kind of said, okay, we want Barbie to be as big in Japan as it is here. And I think Takara approached them and said, well, if you want Barbie to be big here, let us help you. So I think they tried out a few different things, and they finally did a doll, and this is Japanese Barbie. And Japanese Barbie kind of has a Francie body. Blonde hair.
Yes.
Quintessential Americana, or what?
And the connection to Barbie too.
Yeah.
The blue eyes, blonde hair, kind of.
So she's a fabulous doll, and they market her as Barbie. And I discovered this doll because on the CBS News when I was about 12 years old, they did a news story of how Barbie was suddenly a big thing in Japan. And they showed a clip of the commercial. And as a collector, because I started collecting when I was, 12 years old, I was like, how do I get one of these dolls? Well, it would take me a long time to do that. But they marketed it, and it was a huge success. So the same Takara was manufacturing Barbie in Japan under license, and so that started about 81, 82.
Yeah, like very early 80s, and then you get a dream. A dream happens.
So, it's just sort of like, it's the 80s. And so you've got all of that fabulous fashion happening, whether you like 80s fashion or not.
Right.
You're getting a very demure sort of doll, blonde hair, gorgeous. This is actually a designer outfit.
They do a lot of designer collaborations in Japan.
Yeah, this is a Japanese designer called, what is his name?
The
Kansai Yamamoto.
Yeah.
And so they did all of these little separates, and this one actually has like the little tag that says it's Takara in there. But they do these cute little things. It was a lot that looked like Princess Diana in the 80s. Remember all those little Peter Pan collars and blouses?
And puff sleeves.
Oh, yeah, it was just yummy.
Long skirts. And
yummy. And so Barbie, for the first time in the history of Japan, is doing amazing.
Right.
And maybe too amazing. and I think Mattel gets a little worried. So they pulled the license.
Yeah, Mattel pulls the license, and then, very much in the scheme of Dallas, if everyone remembers that storyline.
It's such an 80s storyline. Overnight, there was a whole news story press release that happened to little girls around Japan that it's like Barbie had been in a play and did such an amazing job in the play. She played a character named Jenny, and because it was so successful, she decided to change her name to Jenny.
Jenny, yeah.
So, so that is how Jenny was born. And so the Takara Barbies were literally slid out of the Barbie boxes and slid into the Japanese boxes. As I collected, you would still find a doll in a Takara Jenny box that might have like a Barbie logo on it. So, and about that time is when we get into this generation of Lika, which this is 5th generation.
It's like 4th. I think that's like early 4th, yeah.
But she's got blonde hair, and
it would be 5th generation. Yeah, 5th generation. Yeah.
She's got blonde hair, blue eyes. She's really cute.
She's very much like a smaller Jenny.
Yes, so they're very similar, and but there's really no crossover in their worlds.
No.
It's Jenny's world and Lika's world. And about this time is when collectors in the U.S. really started kind of discovering these other things, or collectors that were traveling and bringing these things home. So it was so magic and so amazing. And
they're showing up at conventions at the time.
Yes.
Like different doll conventions you would go, collectors had access to these dolls, or they were coming in, or they had friends that were coming from Japan, and they would bring those dolls over. And so we started seeing a lot of this. And online, if we get to the later 90s,
when suddenly there's this thing called eBay that comes along, and we can suddenly buy this stuff online. But about that time of eBay and conventions and this stuff turning up is about the time that Lika, and she was born in 1967, so it wasn't soon after that she celebrated her 35th anniversary. And so I think they were very sort of
Inspired by Barbie.
Inspired by Barbie to celebrate this anniversary. And because it was such a big part of the Japanese culture, lots of girls and women at that point had grown up with Lika. They decided to commemorate it. And because a lot of the production had been done in Japan, it was very different with Mattel outsourcing it. I think they preserved like the molds and the history and everything. So they had all of that available at their disposal. And about that time, a couple magical things happened. Number one, they opened up a thing called Lika Castle. Now, Lika Castle is in the north of Japan.
You have to take a train.
A bullet
for several
train.
hours, yeah.
And so, but it looks like the Cinderella Castle at Disney World.
Yeah.
But it's where they make Lika, or they make some Likas.
They make some.
They have a doll museum with the whole history.
Yes.
And they have a store where you can build your own Lika there. You can make your own thing. So they open up this fabulous castle. They have a store in Tokyo called Lika Castle Small Shop or something.
I think that's something like
so
that.
It's been many different
But,
incarnations.
yeah.
But they're suddenly marketing these dolls not only to kids, but to collectors. And to 50-year-old men like me.
You were 30 at the time. 39 at the time. There you go.
I'm not even 30 now, am I? So, but this is a reproduction Lika. This is one of the first reproductions
This
done.
is one of the first ones they did in the 90s, the late 90s.
And they're replicating an actual original vintage outfit.
That's correct, yeah.
And so I'm going to hold up the original one next to her so you can just kind of see. It's pretty darn close.
It is pretty close. Like there was another version of the first generation Lika that actually had that updo hairstyle as well. So that's what they're replicating here.
But it's very similar, and that outfit is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But in the same vein of this, there was another company that was like a store. We've had this conversation before that was called PB. And they made a lot of replica things. They actually did a collaboration with Barbie in the late 80s.
Oh, yes.
PB. And PB stands for, is it Pretty Bunny?
Pretty Bunny.
Yeah. Fun name for a store. So they made all of these cute little replica or first generation size dresses that are just...
Some are like really close to like original outfits, and other ones are just like their take on what a vintage mod outfit would be like for Lika.
I love these, and David really loves these. So yeah. David has a huge...
Yeah,
amazing collection
into
of them
in the early 2000s, and they would release them in batches. So you would get the most magical way of getting a doll for me, and because of those dolls, is that they just came in little clear cellophane bags, and they're wearing like a little bathing suit in a color. So like they have a white bathing suit, one-piece bathing suit, or black, or blue, whatever it is, and that was it. That's all they came in.
And they weren't very expensive. I mean,
no, relatively. They're not compared to what we pay now.
But and one of the reasons why it's inexpensive is because there was no packaging. It's just a cellar bag.
Yeah.
But some of the other collaborations, I have to show this. They did, what is it? Remit that did the little toys and stuff like that. And this is like a replica, like a miniature. It's a miniature Lika doll, and a miniature Lika house. And I'm gonna try and open that. I'll let you do that, David. I don't want to destroy your Lika house.
Okay. There we go.
And so it's Lika's house, and Lika sits on a little stool in the house. So it's just a little scale house. Now, you have this one. I don't have this one. I'll hand that to you. But they did the Lika Mansion, which is like, it was like a Barbie dream house where it folded out on either side from the late 60s. And it came with a miniature Lika. And it's pretty scary. I mean, it's like this is like Lika's Lika house.
Yeah.
It's really cute.
Yeah, it's adorable stuff.
But for me, this is a fun hobby because a lot of like what I like for Barbie is the nostalgia. I remember when I was little, and I played with it, and so it's very nostalgic for me. And it's kind of fun to kind of think of this simultaneously happening in my youth and me never knowing about it, and then going back and discovering this.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me nostalgic for the childhood I never had. But it's fun, and it's kind of interesting how there were other products at Takara, like the float rings. They made Christmas decorations, like the inflatable things, but they also did dolls similar to the Pose dolls that are Takara.
And they did the vinyl elves that we know, the felt and vinyl head elves that we look like Rice Krispie, Snack, Crackle, and Pop.
Yeah, they look like them. So I know as a collector, one of the things we love are guides and magazines and stuff like that to kind of tell us. I know that this particular book was written by Rudy Terrell.
Yes.
And it's about Jenny.
It's about Jenny. Yeah, it's a reference book for Jenny. It's like one of the really good ones. It was early on. I think Rudy did that in the early 2000s.
And it's English and
Taiwanese, I believe. Yeah.
And there are several reference books about Lika, most of them in Japanese.
There's a lot of magazines that cover it. So like if you can find a good reference magazine, some of those have it. It's really a kind of thing where you have to kind of discover it online.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing that's different now than when we started collecting this, like for me, like in roughly 2000 is, I have an app on my phone. I can hold it over the magazine and read it in English. So,
that's amazing, yeah.
But they did lots of amazing stuff. They have an amazing history. They merged with the company Tomy, which is another Japanese toy company. Takara merged with Tomy in 2006, so the brand is now Takara Tomy. Lika is still the best-selling doll in Japan.
Yes.
And much like Barbie, she has her own Instagram. She has a YouTube channel. She's kind of all over the place.
All the technology is on her side.
Yes. So, David, thank you for sharing your Takara Lika and your knowledge of these dolls with me.
Absolutely.
And I hope you have a nice holiday, and I hope Santa Claus is very good to you.
Likewise.
So thank you. Thank you, World Doll Day friends. We'll look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button.